When I was 7 years old, my parents took me to see a movie that made a lasting impression on me, and with me, on an entire generation. From the red velvet seat I was sitting in, I witnessed a world of wonder and possibilities. And I got fascinated with science, the mysteries of the universe, the power of love and friendship, and the uniqueness of the human condition. At least, that's what I make of it now. Because I don't know about you, but when I was 7 years old, I had a hard time making sense of any movie, let alone one about an alien stranded on Earth looking for a phone to call home. So I did what most kids do when they don't understand something. I turned to a grown-up. Luckily, my father was sitting right next to me. So as soon as the movie started, I began to ask questions. Why did they leave him? Why is he hiding? What's wrong with his finger? Things were great at first. My father diligently answered all of my questions. But about 20 minutes in, things shifted dramatically, at least for me, who relied entirely on him to make sense of things. From that moment on, whatever I asked, because was the answer that I got. And if I would venture and ask, but why because? I would get a because back. Now that makes total sense, right? But then again, who could blame him? Now that you know the kind of inquisitions that I put my parents through, you might think that I was a curious, interested child. Perhaps that my curiosity opened me up to the world and led me to a life of adventure. And although I would love to tell you that I was the Indiana Jones of my family, I really wasn't. My interest for the world came with a compulsive need for certainty. I was a curious child, yes, but I was also a highly sensitive one. I felt things deeply. This made me very anxious and worried. I never wanted to do anything wrong so that nobody would be mad at me because I had a hard time dealing with that. Now, this curiosity meets creativity cocktail made me really good at learning patterns, structures, rules, but it made me terrible at being spontaneous, creative, or stepping outside of my comfort zone. And as many of my friends will tell you, it turned me into a very proud member of the rule police. You know, the people that have more fun making sure you're respecting the rules of the game rather than playing it? That was me. I hated experiences that made me feel things I'd never felt before. I had difficulty speaking to people I didn't know. New situations made me anxious, and what I didn't understand scared me. To some extent, and this is the first of 3 points that I want to make today, we all have a natural tendency for certainty and fear. Jeff Hawkins, the creator of the Palm Pilot and the founder of the Neuroscience Institute, has a very interesting theory about how we make sense of the world in terms of patterns. Our brains receive patterns from the outside world, he says, stores them as memories, then makes predictions based on what we have seen before and what is happening now. And according to evolutionary psychology, this ability helped us to survive as a species. Our ancestors probably learned to associate moving branches with wild animals lurking in trees. And although this increased their chances of survival, it also created their first belief that moving branches are dangerous. And so fear was born. Now fast forward to today. Wild animals lurking in branches have made way for other threats to our lives, especially in these tumultuous times. But even without that, many of us experience fear, sometimes on a daily basis. I know I did. And after hundreds of hours coaching other women, I know that I'm not alone. Fear is the disease of our time. What is uncertain, and that is practically everything in our lives, can become a source of fear. And that fear, it seems, can only be cured by certainty. And when certainty cannot be made certain in a way, we still try to summon it. Think about athletes' lucky socks, or the pen that helped you to pass an exam, or the Goldie t-shirt you wore when you gave that great speech. Throughout history, it's this same quest for certainty that fueled our interest for knowledge, trying to make certain what is uncertain. And knowledge has been absolutely awesome. Just about everything we have in our lives right now is the result of it. We owe so much to science and technology, including beautiful movies about intergalactic friendships. But the worship of certainty has made us fall deep into the trap of our own wiring, trusting knowledge so much that we've stopped to question what we're actually thinking. From an early age, we're taught to assimilate information, but not so much to dispute it. And in school, it's not curiosity that is nurtured, but memory, through our extensive training of our ability to remember truths, but not to question them. But since I like questions, I wonder, what is truth? Truth is a consensus. It's a set of beliefs shared by a group of people for a particular amount of time. Our world is built upon beliefs. Everything we do, all the decisions we make, are based upon what we believe to be true. Think about vegetarians or vegans, for instance. Their set of beliefs is very different from that of people eating meat. And the difference is not only about what they put on their plates. They might have very different worldviews, political views, environmental views. Now, in science, truth is also a consensus, but among scientists. And the difference between scientists and the rest of us, making their truths seem more certain than ours, is the scientific method. It's a rigorous method of asking questions, formulating hypotheses, and then testing these assumptions out against the world. And this brings me to point 2, the paradox of science. The scientific method can never verify an hypothesis with irrefutable evidence. Scientists know this. That's why they never claim to be right, but rather tentatively and provisionally offer answers to questions. Ever heard of the planet Vulcan? Star Trek fans? Not that Vulcan. There was a time, though, that a planet named Vulcan was part of our solar system. In the 19th century, Urbain Le Verrier proposed the hypothesis of a planet between Mercury and the Sun, when he and fellow mathematicians couldn't explain the anomalies of Mercury's orbit. And the existence of Vulcan remained a scientific truth until 1915, when Einstein's theory of relativity helped to clear that up. Now, what does this tell us? That science is not to be trusted? On the contrary, science, knowledge, technology are all essential for our advancement as a species. But what then? The paradox of science is that we can never know for sure. Science is fueled by curiosity. It's pushed forward by its questions, not its answers. Scientists know this, but most of us don't. We love truth more than anything, and this is a problem. Relying so much on what we believe to be true means that whatever doesn't fit the picture is by definition wrong and needs to be left out. Just think about gender. In science, there are only two sexes, male and female. That's why in the West, for the longest time, we thought there could only be two genders, man and woman. But there are and always have been many more. Before Christian missionaries converted Native Americans, for instance, they knew at least 5 genders, not 2, but 5. And let's not forget about E.T. What gender would that be? So what we can conclude from this is that our thinking is fundamentally flawed. Unlike scientists, the only way that most of us know how to arrive at conclusions is to jump to them. We have no peer reviews, and we don't evaluate evidence in the same rigorous way. We really love facts that reinforce what we already believe, and we don't like anything that doesn't. Still, we think that our beliefs are equally reliable. Just think about how many times you have reinforced the validity of a trivial fact by mentioning you saw it on Facebook or you read it somewhere, or how many hoaxes you've had to Google before convincing yourself they weren't true. Now this brings me to my third and final point. Our beliefs shape our reality. The nature of reality itself changes according to what we, alone and collectively, choose to believe. A world in which there can only be 2 genders is different from one in which you're free to choose your own. A world in which all of these genders are equal to each other is different from one in which one gender rules all others. As human beings, we go through life creating this huge library of beliefs. We get them from our parents, from society, we create our own. They're the foundation of how we live our lives. They create our reality. And because of my excessive need for certainty, I believed so many limiting things about myself that I lived inside a very small box. Until 2010. That summer, 5 weeks apart from each other, both my parents passed away. And with them, my sense of certainty. Then it hit me. I'd been so afraid of doing something wrong that I'd lived my life on autopilot, programmed entirely on beliefs I had never questioned. Realizing this forced me to dig deep. Since my beliefs and certainties had kept me stuck for so long, I decided that I would start to use curiosity to get out of it. I decided that I would not believe anything I thought anymore, but that instead I would be deliberately curious and ask myself, is this really true? And could this be another way? Think about the thing that you want most out of life right now, but are too afraid to do. What beliefs are stopping you? That you're not good enough, not worthy enough, not smart enough? That women aren't supposed to do it, or men? That nobody's ever done it before? That it will never work? I had all those beliefs, believe me, and many, many more. And if I hadn't questioned them, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you today. I would not have left my home country of Belgium to explore the world, and I would not have given up a corporate career to start a business nobody believed in. And this is what I want to leave you with today. Certainty may well be the antidote to fear, but it is not the secret to happiness or success or even peace on earth. Asking questions is, like children do when they first hear about aliens, or like I do now when fear tries to convince me that something's impossible. So ask questions, especially about things that keep you small, unhappy, fearful, stuck in a box. Don't believe anything you think. At least, don't assume it's true just because you think it. Keep reaching beyond the edges of what you think you know, because that is where you'll find the courage to follow your dreams, to live your one true life. And that, in turn, is how you will change the world. Thank you.